Hello, I am the awkward GM Corbin, and I hope you are all doing well tonight. Please let me know if my audio is coming through correctly, if you can in the chat. I've been adjusting my delay on my video and audio, which has been causing some issues for me. I might do a little bit of a quick check myself right now. Yeah, it seems like my lips are matching to my voice. In any case, let's continue to Trinity Continuum Aether. This recent addition to the Trinity Continuum universe is one that I've been I've been really excited for. I can't hide it much longer. Trinity Continuum Aether is the steampunk-ish version of Trinity Continuum. It takes place, I believe, somewhere around the 1800s. You just look at the front cover right here, and you can see like War of the Worlds type alien UFOs up at the top. You've got the woman with a cross, various steampunky things, as well as dinosaurs, portals, even vampires, and like maybe a Jack the Ripper type character there. I like zoom in, enhance, enhance. Okay, I went a little bit too far on the enhancement, but yeah, vampires. That's pretty crazy. Fear and curiosity in the Victorian era. Quick little let's cover credit where credit is due. We've got the various writers on this. Oh, is it not centered? It might not be centered because I keep zooming in and out. Yeah, I'm getting used to this setup. Apologies. Various people who've helped bring this product to life. Matthew Dawkins, developer, Ian A. Watson, content lead. Thank you all, including all the wonderful writers. Dedicated to our talented colleague and brilliant friend, Leith Shields. Awesome. I apologize if I got the name wrong. Anyway. Before I forget, as far as stuff that's been going on in the Onyx Path world, if you didn't know, the Mythic Shards Kickstarter finished off last week, I believe. They made a lot, and I think they said they reached every stretch goal that they had outlined initially. And then additionally, they announced that the Story Path Ultra Kickstarter or backer kit is coming out soon. They haven't given us a time or a date yet. I'm very happy to see that that's coming out soon. Also, a lot of stuff with Kickstarter with Curseborn coming out. Well, not coming out. Curseborn having its Kickstarter in October. On sale this week for Wednesday, we have the Weird Wonders and Revolutionary Magic. That is for Mage 20th edition, Mage the Ascension 20th edition Victorian. So check that out if you can when that goes live. And what else was I told to talk about for a sec? Indie Press Revolution, a lot of stuff is going on sale there for Chronicles of Darkness, Exalted, and Legend and Lore. And that seems to be about it. Any case, you came here for Trinity Continuum Aether. Overview of the world so far in this little index section. You have the talking about the Aether era, which is the Victorian era. You do need a Trinity Continuum core rulebook for this. We have the various histories. We have the various societies and counter societies, which, having played other Trinity Continuum games, I haven't really heard of counter societies before, unless it's something like the anathema societies from Assassins. So we've got Edison's Unwinders, the Esoteric Order of the Aeons, Her Royal Highness's Planetary Defense Pact, Society for the Opposition of Monsters, Students of Tesla, the Three Prongs, and then we have some minor societies, as well as the counter societies where we have the Children of Mars, which I'm guessing are aliens, the Immortals, which may be vampires. I'm not sure. I'm experiencing this as a beginner, just like you all are. So thank you for sticking around to see me stumble through all of this. In any case, after we go through all of that section here, we are going to then go into Aeronauts and Dreadfuls. I wonder what Aeronauts are. Okay, but then we have the character creation, and if I remember correctly from what people have said, you play like an interesting like change up of talents. You've got the Gog Magog thing going on. It's interesting I don't see that written down here, but I do know that there are interesting rules that they've thrown in here. If you were looking for stuff with urban, not urban, but like the universal monsters, and you think universal monsters, it means that they're general monsters. No, they're the universal monsters from the Universal movie pictures of like the early 1900s, where you got the Frankenstein, the Wolfman, Dracula. Various rules of etheric. That's the other thing. They use ether in this, which, if I recall correctly from my nerddom, Aether is like the hypothetical substance of space. Like it was like you could fly on the Aether and stuff like that. We have the etheric gifts, and this is where you have the Gogs and Magogs mentioned, as well as the Squires. I wonder what those guys are doing. Various different powers and abilities that they're going to get. This is a pretty hefty book for what I thought would just be a supplement. Additionally, we've got down here for the story guide section, we have stuff like the Martians and various abilities they have. We have the overview of the local area and stuff like that. Timer, Morlocks. If I remember correctly, Morlocks, aren't they the thing from H.G. Wells' Time Machine? It's interesting. I'm not only am I reading Aether right now, but I am watching the Warehouse 13 TV show, and they do have a lot of stuff with Tesla and H.G. Wells and things of that nature. Ooh, The World Has Changed by Lauren Roy. I like Our Dearest Maxwell, to our son Maxwell Anderson Mercer, on the occasion of our deaths. To Maxie. Dear Max. I'm not going to read that whole thing. I like these etheric gate things. I actually did play Aether. I'm remembering now. I played Trinity Continuum Aether during the Onyx PathCon. It was fun. It was kind of crazy what we were doing. Very all over the place as far as like globe trotting. It was fun. This is the type of stuff that you're going to see. You're going to see stuff with Martians in the background and people with a lot of steampunk things going on. So you have the themes of exploration and wonder, experimentation, invention, and curiosity, invasion, and fear. In 1895, people can travel the world, but at a cost. There are so many places yet inaccessible to everyone, and many areas are underdeveloped outside of the city centers. Strange places lurk in untrodden spaces, ready for explorers to discover and investigate. I do like to skip a little bit around. Apologies. Media inspiration, you have The War of the Worlds, Sherlock Holmes, Journey to the Center of the Universe, The Picture of Dorian Gray, a character who uses Aether to gain immortality. Frankenstein, Dracula, The Time Machine, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and The Island of Dr. Moreau and the... Unlike some other games in Trinity Continuum, Aether presents 3 new character options that replace or more accurately precede what comes to be known as talents in later eras. Unless otherwise specified, these characters use the rules for talents, but talents are not playable as written. For example, consistent with the rules of talents in Trinity Continuum Core, the player's characters in Trinity Continuum Aether, Squires, Gogs, and Magogs roll their dice pools against a target number of 8, with the dice showing 8, 9, 10. Okay. Now we do have a glossary of terms here. So we have Aether. Depending on who you ask, Aether is a substance, an element, or a tangible fabric of reality. What is certain is that Aether can fundamentally alter the fundamental limitations of human endeavor. The Aether era is the late 19th century onward. This term is only used within Aethernaut societies, sometimes called the Age of Aether and the Aether Age. Aether event is a disaster discovery directly linked to the use of Aether, i.e. creation of an Aether gate. Why do I say etheric gate? It must be from a game or something. The sinking of a battleship using Aether technology, the recovering of Dunwich from the sea using Aether. Aether gate is a portal that allows Aethernauts to traverse distance and time in ways that defies understood physics. And then an Aethernaut is just a term for people who use Aether. An apparatus is a tool used by the Gogs for Aether manipulation. That's a new word, Gogs. Let's go down to Gogs. Gogs are manipulators of Aether who shift reality, form, and environment using tools known as apparatus. Okay, so you're like, seems a bit like a alchemist in some way. Now, going back to where we left off, the Ascendancy is a vast multiversal empire. Also see Martians. Going down to Martians. A tentacled species believed to originate from the planet Mars, now intent on invading Earth using advanced mechanical devices and devastating weaponry. This makes me think, as soon as I see tentacle species, it makes me think of Francis. You know, if you don't know who Francis is, I might have the name slightly wrong. If you have the Trinity Continuum Core rulebook, which Trinity Continuum Core, it's always written. There we go. So for the Trinity Continuum Core rulebook, and you go all the way down to antagonists. Martians sound suspiciously like Francis Smith, the octopus from Trinity Continuum Core, who had, I believe, had a female alternate version for Adventure that didn't make it into the book, Francine. I'm not sure, but if you ask Ian on the Trinity Continuum Discord, sometimes she'll throw up the image from Adventure that they didn't use. Okay, so Martians. We did that. Blood of Gog. A society of Gogs dedicated to the embrace of and mastery of their inhuman natures as step in the human process. Then we have the Caesar Consortium, a criminal society supposedly headed by Moriarty, which uses Aether to further lawless enterprise on an international scale. I like that a lot. I like Moriarty as a villain. As soon as I heard Trinity Continuum Aether was coming out, I was wondering if the, I think it's the Worshipful Society or something like that. There's a society of assassins that predates, that exists around this time, and I thought it would be cool if there was a book about it here, but there is not. In any case, I'm moving on. Chevaliers a society dedicated to extracting innocent families from the ruins brought about by criminality, perfidy, and Aether, and provide new identities for those they help. The Children of Mars, a human cult society dedicated to serving the Martians and furthering their aims on Earth. Okay, so this is where we get the Martian stuff going in. Humans betraying the species for some Martian technology. Of course, Dr. Jekyll's Explorers of the Unknown, a society of Aethernauts who experiment boldly, even callously, on the world and their own bodies. I like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I'm very excited for seeing that in another game Onyx Path is doing, but I won't cover that right now. Dreadfuls, a derogatory term for Magogs and to a lesser extent Gogs. Now we've heard what Gogs are. What are Magogs? People who use Aether internally to alter their forms, becoming things other than recognizably human. Okay, so that sounds a little bit like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation. Edison's Unwinders, Thomas Edison's formal society of Aethernauts who pursued the unwinding. Oh, got a notification here. I'm just remove that. Observe the unwinding of Aether alterations to the world. So basically fixing the world. Esoteric Order of Aeon, society dedicated to the largely responsible exploration of worlds, Aether experimentation, and protecting humanity from the misuses of etheric power. Now we do have Flux, which we've covered in Trinity Continuum. It's the energy that exists between worlds, usable as a power and a medium to create events and actions beyond base human ability. Gift, powers used by squires, gogs, and magogs that defy conventional laws of science and human limitation. We did gogs. Her Royal Highness's Planetary Defense Pact. This has to be the opposite of the Martians people, right? Arguably the most powerful in terms of politics, society in service to Queen Victoria and the British Empire, dedicated to defending the Empire from and laterally the Earth from Martian invasion. Is this when I think this might be when the British Empire, like, no, maybe earlier, but like basically the British Empire covered like 90% of the world practically. Chimera, a cautious yellow-eyed, blue-skinned, and blue-haired people occasionally encountered on their alien world, accessible via Aether gates, sometimes referred to Aetherites. The Immortals, an informal society which is more a collective term for people who have altered their beings to such a large degree they now possess eternal life, with some conditions. Inspired are people who can use gifts. Kino no Bushi, the Warriors for Yesterday, a society involved in unwinding time to return their culture, people, and land to a previous time its members think of as utopic. Interesting. We did Magog, we did Martian, Morlock. Subterranean dwelling, gray-skinned, large-eyed beings belonging to a time or dimension not our own, believed to be cannibals, but definitely killers. The Order of Murder, a society focused on opening Aether gates to alternate versions of Earth to allow the successful assassination and replacement of selected targets. That sounds like a nice... I'd put an assassin character from Trinity Continuum Assassins in that. That sounds awesome. Oh, it looks like we got a lot of people coming up here. Just going over the quick rundown overview of Trinity Continuum Aether. We've got Os Volanches, a society dedicated to exploring and chronicling the world using Aether and discovering lost worlds beyond and within our Earth. This was something that was used in Trinity Continuum Adventure, which was Strange Places, which if I go down here, Strange Places are mentioned again, a term used to describe places that geographically and ecologically should not exist, but contain vast pools of Aether, i.e., Atlantis, center of the earth, Lost World, Wonderland, etc. Panes, a Martian term for the dividing barriers between parallel worlds. So Martians have some sort of vocabulary in here. Panes do sound more like a human term to me, but maybe I need to see it in context. We have red weed, which is primal mold-like entity the Mars used to scour invaded planets. Rift, an Aether event where one dimension bleeds into another, now commonly referred to as an Aether gate unless the rift is particularly unstable. Sanguinivores, a term some Aethernaut scientists use to describe vampires, as popularized in science fiction. So they also might exist in the Vampire Immortal Society, rather. I remember when I played Aether, my character didn't believe vampires and magic existed, and every time something magical would happen, he would turn his back. Shakti, a term the three-prong used in place of Aether. Society for the Opposition of Monsters, a society of hunters and those transformed by Aether who wish to eliminate the threat of those who endanger humankind through monstrous activity and Aether use. Okay, so people who've been turned into monsters stopping other monsters. Spin, to manipulate and open reality to scientifically impossible events, i.e. opening up the Aether gates, the elevation of the human form, and limits, the manipulation of luck and technology. And then the third option we have for a character, because we did cover Magog and Gogs, Squires are the third option. It's getting to me a little bit. I need to know what are Magog and Gog. A pair of names that appear in the Bible ascribed to individuals and tribes. By the time of the Gog prophecy is meant to be filled, approaching the end of days. Okay, so okay, I'm still a little bit lost on it. It's a biblical reference. In any case, the only time I've heard of Gog and Magog was in the Super Sentai Go Busters, where they were the names of one of the characters' guns. So sorry about that. Tangent. We covered Strange Places, Students of Tesla, a society of members of which study and research at mastery of Aether use, spinning up experiments in nominally safe environments and only involving knowledgeable volunteers. Talents are directly Squires. Okay. We have the three prongs, religious society that believes Aether can be used to transcend earthly identity and bring balance to the imbalanced world. And then we have Unwind, which is to undo the changes wrought by spinning from an individual to an etheric event. Really like this art. You know, for steampunk being like this huge movement or like genre thing back in like the 2000s, late 2000s, early 2010s, I think, it's kind of funny to me that we didn't see really any big name properties come out of that movement. The stuff that comes to mind when I think of steampunk is Wild Wild West and The Difference Engine by William Gibson and the guy who did Snow Crash, Stevenson. But I don't think of too many other like steampunky things. So we have a quick overview here. It's 1895 in London. Just months ago, gas lamps flickered brightly lighting streets as carriages rolled past. People bustled about their business, and the sounds of industry filled the air. Electric lights dotted the insides of high-end homes, their orange glows emerging from windows and shutters. Underlying the cheer of a busy street were the furtive glances people cast over their shoulders, hoping to avoid any suspicious individuals of which there appeared to be in abundance. The newspaper spoke of Spring Hill Jack, an unusual stellar phenomenon, but the layperson didn't understand the depths of these oddities. They just knew something weird and threatening was going on out of their sight. Spring Hill Jack was an interesting story from the Victorian era if you never knew. I mean, it's very similar to the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Jack the Ripper stuff. Spring Hill Jack was like a newspaper phenomenon of this idea of a man who was basically going around jumping over walls and like escaping from people, usually like doing some sort of prank and then running away. I don't think there was anything malicious associated with him, but there was this whole thing of they're going to catch Spring Hill Jack. I even think Mythbusters might have done a test of the device to see if like you could actually have someone jumping that high, and it was like, nope, if there was such a device, it would have shattered his leg. So, new devices and weapons into their lives, their worlds, and their selves. Aether pioneers were adopting stuff in a secret scientific revolution. They were changing the fundamentals of reality away from the eyes of the unenlightened, exploring, inventing, and mutating the limits of human capability. Perhaps they intended to reveal these developments at a World's Fair, or maybe the word would have leaked out eventually, but there's no time for that now. Earth has experienced its first invasion from space. If the preceding years were defined by a mixture of wonder and paranoia, 1895 is a time of fear and fight. The people don't know that the most effective tools against these Martian invaders are already in their midst. But will the Aethernauts stand up and hold the line, or devote themselves to their own fixations and leave the rest of ignorant humanity to the invaders? I've been working on my like 1800s newsreel voice. Maybe it's early 1900s. It was basically, I was watching Legend of Korra and I started mimicking the guy's voice and having fun with that. So we have in spring of the night of 1880, Nikola Tesla was living in Prague, doing all this proggy stuff. And then we've got application of electrical currents. Didn't create a Cybertruck. That's sad. At first, he recorded everything he could about this new energy source he called Aether in relation to other forms of electricity. He measured current, wavelength, density, and anything else he could, but found that while clearly related to electromagnetic flux, it behaved in most ways differently to electricity. While its current was measurable and even somewhat predictable, it could not power devices designed to run off of electric energy. And the few times he could get it to light a light bulb, they would burn out almost immediately, overwhelmed by the energy surge. Each time he lit a bulb, though, Tesla caught a glimpse of something beyond the green light that drove him to keep working. Tesla saw himself reflected in a grimy glass, but behind him, instead of his tiny apartment, he saw a glorious workroom filled with hundreds of glowing, dangling bulbs, whose pinpricks of light reflected on the glass. The strange world sparked so many questions that Tesla knew Aether was more than just an energy source. So this is Tesla of the Trinity Continuum universe, possibly seeing the Tesla from our universe. Aether was different from normal electricity, so Tesla reasoned it would power different devices, and beyond that might open up a new realm of possibilities. Tesla could not fabricate something suitable on his own, so he turned to the physics department at the university. Here he met Jan and Melina Strojanovic. Jan was a professor who specialized in machinery and mechanics. Melina was his lab assistant, editor, and devoted partner who knew just as much, if not more, about physics and electricity than Jan. Jan and Melina agreed to help Tesla build the design he had produced to harness Aether. So this is Tesla building the Aetherizer, as he calls it, and was supposed to be a bulb that would harness the etheric energy in a stable manner. Like just using the term etheric is something that I really like to use. They powered the bulb. It glowed softly. Tesla immediately began searching the glasses, reflecting. However, he only saw himself and the Stravanovics beside him, marveling at their first Aether-powered machine. He was disappointed. He wanted to see his other world he had glimpsed in the bulb before, and began moving it this way and that to catch the vision. As he did, the room around them started to shimmer and change. The more Tesla thought of the room with a sparkling lights, the more the room changed around them, until eventually they were standing in a foreign location with dozens of multicolored bulbs hanging from the ceiling of a workroom. The three stood awestruck as they took in their new surrounding. The room's owner, a humanoid with long blue hair, bluish-gray skin, and wide yellow eyes, stumbled upon them and cried out in shock. Their sudden appearance and his understandable shock was too much, and the group's first contact with what appeared to be a new life form did not go as well as they planned. Oh, God. Tesla, what did you do? They devised a plan for communicating with the residents. They couldn't figure out how to return to the laboratory in Prague. They were screaming. Language barriers aside, it seemed these people were just as fascinated by Tesla and the Stravanovics as they were of them. It turned out that they were scientists, and Aether was common to their world as electricity was to Earth. Melina called them Aetherites, though Squires would later come to know them as the Chimera. They spent some time together, sharing in their own ways their science and discoveries, marveling at the similarities and differences between each other. Tesla drew schematics of his Aetherizer, and they in turn drew their own Aether harnessing devices. When Tesla tried to explain electricity to them, they couldn't understand it as anything other than Aether. They spent days with the Aetherites before finally figuring out how to use Tesla's Aetherizer to return to Prague. This was the first creation of an unstable Aether gate. Jan and Melina used the gate to travel back and forth for nearly a whole week. They exchanged ideas and schematics with the Aetherites and learned far more about Aether in the time period than any other. When the gate collapsed, it had catastrophic effect on the lab. The space around the gate bent and folded in on itself, bringing the entire section of the building down around it. They could not find Melina afterwards. Nikolai thought Jan might be devastated by her loss, but he took it in stride. He had faith that she had gone through the gate when she saw it would collapse and would see her again one day. Until then, they would carry on without her. So Jan and Nikolai decided to tentatively find other trustworthy individuals to investigate Aether safely. Tesla started working for the Budapest Telephone Exchange under Tivadar Puskas, and then Jan moved, taking up a short-term position at the Budapest University. Okay, there goes the Aether Gate. And there's a person flying in the air. There are two people flying in the air. I am a little worried about that. I'm going to speed through this a little bit. I know we're halfway through, but this is the general overview of the setting. I usually like to do that and then get into more character creation stuff. So we do talk about Aether Gates. A green light in the sky. In 1889, several astronomers marked a strange green emission from planet Mars. This event was well recorded and mostly unremarkable upon the Aether community until Ormerod made the connection between the green Aether and the green emission. She excitedly wrote about it under a pseudonym, a treasonous act, were she to ever be identified, for the fall circulation of the British Journal of Discovery. and almost no one took notice of it for another 3 months, as a majority of scientists still believe Aether was a pseudoscience. Nikola Tesla took this seriously and to go investigate the emission by spinning an Aether gate to Mars. Tesla gate to Mars was the first time that anyone had publicly attempted to open a gate not to another dimension, but to another location in space. That seems a little bit weird. I would have thought that people would have tried to gate to other locations on Earth, but in any case, it was the first time they'd done that. While other gates seemed to open onto another dimension at random, Tesla had long theorized he knew exactly where he was going. He could open a gate to a specific location. He had been testing local teleportation gates for months. The first gate to Mars was created with little fanfare or circumstance. Ellen, Richards, and Jan were the only witnesses as Nikola Tesla turned the dials and started the machine. He would turn later, confirming that he was in fact on a planet covered in red dirt and open sky. They cheered, drank wine, and congratulations. Later that month, when the gate still stood as a testament to Tesla's mastery over Aether gates, a group of students of Tesla followed the scientists through to their first investigation of Mars. So we were in the first. The planet was not awash in Aether, as was postulated, but instead pooled in pockets, just like on Earth. Her Highness's Planetary Defense Pact was the first step in, hoping to assess any threats that traveling to a new planet might pose. The esoteric Order of Aeons were hot on their heels, hoping to share in their joint mission to protect Earth. They took samples of the first native redweed. On the third trip humans took to Mars, they ran across the first Martian. He was a short, green, and humanoid, except for his overly large eyes and numerous tentacles. It's now assumed he only took a humanoid form to vaguely mirror the visitors from Earth. Initial attempts to communication proved difficult, but soon the Martians were able to use their superior mental capabilities to interpret and understand their words. They taught Martians each of their native Earth languages, which it picked up with ease, though Tesla was the only one able to master Martian. Yeah, we have this beautiful scene here of Big Ben not being attacked by Martians because we did this peacefully. Oof. Here is proof of life outside of Earth with technologies, blah, blah, blah. It hinted at something greater in the universe, including space travel. Everyone except for Her Royal Highness's Planetary Defense Pact immediately began cataloging the Martians and determining what threat they might pose to the Empire. Despite their pessimism, the Martians were shaping up to be a trove of information. Unfortunately, the Martians were not the benevolent science-sharing things Tesla hoped they would be. The Martians were most interested in Aether and its applications. While they had technologies that far outstripped anything Tesla or other scientists of his caliber could create, they had no words for Aether or how to harness it. What they had instead seemed to be a physical manifestation of Aether to use, but they needed no Aether to tap into. Tesla and the other scientists were happy to explain and saw a great deal of potential in Martian designs with Aether applications. They ingratiated themselves. It wasn't until earlier this year when the first invasion force crashed into Paris in giant metal cylinders, destroying everything south of the Seine. I'm bad at pronouncing foreign words, I apologize. That anyone suspected they had a nefarious purpose, but by then it was too late. The Martians never wanted to exchange information or share technology. They viewed Earth as a prime location for expanding their empire, and wanted nothing more than to pave the way for a full-scale invasion. All their scientific inquiry was aimed at figuring out how humanity seemed to move through Aether gates with ease, which was the one Aether application it seemed impossible for Martians to replicate. Eventually, they figured out a workaround, allowing them to hurl themselves through space from Mars to Earth at the speed that would make Henry Ford's head spin. So shortly after the incursion from Mars, the Martians came through in an explosion of activity. Squires were unprepared for the initial attack, but quickly regrouped to fight back. Gogs and Magogs, who had once only practiced in solitude, turned their Aether mastery against the invading force. Squires across the world banded together instead of the Martians completely invading and taking over. A war for primacy on Earth began. Once they began fighting back, the Martians retreated to Mars to regroup. While the invasion felt endless, the Martian forces were anything but. Instead of risking their own lives, they tapped their human followers to bolster their number. In return, Squires continued to travel to Mars, but instead of exchanging ideas, they tried to perform espionage. They tried to restrict Aether gates to Mars, but with so much at stake, it was hard to police. Today, the boundary between Aether's secrets and exposure to the world at large is frayed and thin, but the lie had been perpetrated for so long that Aether's discoverers can't calculate the potential damage of revealing the truth. For now, the war rages on in ways that increasingly frustrate the common public. They know of the invasion from outer space. They know some humans seem better equipped to fight the war than others, but they don't know the facts. And eventually, these secrets will come back to bite their creators if they don't do something to enforce their covert nature. Okay. That was a lot. Apologize for going into that. We do have some Aether events, some strange places listed here. So we have Atlantis. I remember Atlantis being humanoid sea-dwelling people. Then you have Castle Dracula. Is the castle... Oh, Dracula's castle literally floats just above the mountain peaks. During Dracula's earliest Aether experiments, he replaced parts of the castle bit by bit until eventually the whole thing became one large Aether device controlled by him as its unliving heart and Aether channel. So he can spin, cause it to teleport, and travel between dimensions. Aether bleeds from it and saturates the surrounding area. Crazy. We do have the center of the Earth. There are cave shafts that nearly 30 minutes of travel down the steeply sloped shaft before one comes out into a lush realm seemingly inside the Earth's core. The first explorers to find the entrance believed that this was the actual center of the Earth, completely hollow, filled with extraordinary life. Some people, Edward Botchett debunked that idea when he wrote about the center of the Earth truly looked like after opening an Aether gate to the molten core. Now known to be one of the largest strange places in the world, everyone refers to it as the center of the Earth. So this is where like Trinity Continuum begins to fall apart. Well, not fall apart. Trinity Continuum Aether and Trinity Continuum core have a lot of conflicting ideas, but they do work together in some ways. I don't know how people forget about the Martian invasion, but I do know like the strange places eventually like sort of start to disappear, and the largest strange place being the center of the Earth, it makes sense as far as like, oh yeah, that there would definitely be a way of, if people thought the Earth was hollow and hadn't explored down beneath the Earth, that's something that could exist, is a gateway to this other world. Corridor of Infinity. The corridor is generally found in unassuming places such as narrow alleys, unaccompanied by carriage or foot traffic, forgotten caverns, and unused hallways. In these places, Aether has pooled and worn the dimensional barriers thin. Instead of another dimension poking through, as with other strange places, the corridor seems to connect all these small pockets together as though through a dimensional network. Narnia. This is where Narnia came from. No. Maybe. I don't know. Normal folks may pass by the corridor and never realize that they're walking down the passage could lead somewhere else entirely different. Anyone who can manipulate Aether can see not only the Aether pooled around the corridor, but that the passage leads to the same door in each location. This nondescript wooden door always looks like it belongs as part of the regular decor. On the other side is a similar passageway to the one that led to it, but it's somewhere completely different. And sometimes in a completely different dimension. Normally, the corridor leads to a random location, but with the right device and simple know-how, a traveler can pass through one empty passage into another of their choosing. It's a one-way trip, though, as the corridor to infinity simply leads to everywhere, but it does not necessarily reside in all places it leads. Oof. People do tend to disappear. This reminds me very much of the corridor, the back. What do they call it in the Matrix? The back doors or something. The programming back doors in the Matrix. The falls. No waterfalls there. Instead, it is 1 kilometer stretch of river that flows in the wrong direction, where the waterfall should be. The water instead flows gently up the cliff edge. Okay. Water, eddies, and pools. Well, behind the waterfall is a gate. It is naturally occurring. This picture reminds me very much of Peter Pan. We have the baobab tree. Parliament of Quills. We're getting into the stuff I don't know much about, so it's going to be hard for me to explain it. Societies and counter societies. We'll cover societies and counter societies in the next episode of this next week. There's a lot more here than I expected. Maybe I'll have to cover the Aether gates there too. Story guiding. So we have the alien invasion. Artificial intelligence do exist. Most automatons look different from what we imagine synthetic life to appear in modern day sci-fi. Oh, I wanted to cover like the enemies. This is why I came here. Okay. So we do have the parallel universes, time travel, apocalyptic subgenre, and dystopian. Crazy. They do have a little bit of space opera thrown in here as well, which makes sense because you can go to Mars. There are a lot of elements in here that I am very interested in see how they can pan out. Trinity Continuum, I feel, is a great place for this type of storytelling. It's very scientifically based, even if it's a little bit more flim-flam in the modern sense. Like it's the science fiction of the late 1800s and early 1900s that sort of like isn't physically possible, or at least was like it's like different eras of science fiction I really like, because we don't the first era of science fiction we really have is from Mary Shelley with Frankenstein, and I still have yet to read that. I have the book somewhere around here. I got it at like a book sale. So we have got a lot of different stuff about going global, raising the stakes, running around in the wrong side of history. Oh, we've got the Martians. They look very Cthulhu-like. I do like this. You have the various traits that the Martians can have. So they have like an aquatic form, and they have these transformations. Entanglements have an associated flux rating. Each Martian can have its flux trait in entanglements, but may have fewer if wanted. So you can have like adaptive defenses. They can have multiple forms. They can have camouflage, flight. They can be gigantic, have regeneration. What are snares? Are deployed powers that Martians use. These flux-fueled abilities are often more expensive than entanglements, but have the benefit of being available flexibly, and in response to shifting circumstances. Okay. Concussion ray, a green ray gun. Devastation. The attacks from the... This causes shockwaves, buckles buildings, etc. Can do aggravated and continuous round tag damage. They have the Disruptor, which charges its attack with corrosive energies to disrupt the molecular structures, threatening to tear apart from within. Okay. So that's a... This seems like it's a death ray. They can harvest invulnerability. Oh, molecular disruption status condition. The character's body threatens to tear itself apart at the molecular level, requiring constant concentration to overcome. The character suffers a level 2 complication to all actions. Failing to buy this complication results on suffering an injury condition as their concentration wavers. You may only suffer it once. Okay, when an inanimate object... Okay, unless otherwise noted, animate objects have health equal to size. Inanimate objects reaches 0, the item breaks apart, crumbling to dust, and irretrievable components. Okay. So basically a disintegration ray. I wonder if these are applied to weapons? They seem to be applied to the Martians directly. I feel like I'll grab these characters from various... Like, there's so many, like, Story Path and Story Path Ultra games. I feel like Martians and throwing them at the players would be fun. Just take them. We even got the tripods. Oof. Okay, the Chimera. These are the Aetherites. Excuse me. They were cool, though, if I remember correctly. They were fine. Okay, so there's a thing about keeping them secret from the Martians. These are the Morlocks. Definitely of the H.G. Wells variety. We have some antagonistic Aethernauts. The Duchess. Pieced together by parts of dozens of ships, the Duchess began as an ordinary airship designed by ordinary man. Okay. This might not be the Duchess. That Duchess seems to be attached to Baxter Aubert. This is Lady Zelma Doyle. Wooing the most eligible bachelor until he proposed to her. While Picnicking in a park nearby, she spent hours in contact with Aether without knowing what happened. She entered the park a lady, but left the park a squire. At first, Zelma blamed things happening around her on strange luck and chance. He spent most of his days drinking with Parliament or police or anyone else. He might have otherwise, or he might have caught on to the fact that his wife had been different. Now realizing that she's an Aethernaut, Zelma feels that her job to keep the unworthy from reaching high society. Sometimes this looks like a rumor started by Zelma spreading like a wildfire. Sometimes it looks like her convincing her husband to vote one way or another on a law to be passed. So basically, she's using her powers to control society. That is something straight out of Resident Evil right there. Crazy creature. Ah, I am a Martian with my death ray. Oh, the setting secrets. We have 5 minutes left. We'll breeze through some of these setting secrets. What is Aether? Tell me what Aether is. Despite it appears to the human perception, blah, blah, blah. So this is talking about flux, which we know about. As great minds probe into the fabric of reality, empowered by Aether, some wax poetic about the blood of the multiverse, while others pursue harder. In both cases, however, they tend to assume that flux is Aether. This belief is both very close to the truth and also quite incorrect. Aether is transformed product of flux, created by enormous convulsions across the continuum of worlds. It is not a natural form of energy. So it's transformed by... Okay. Only a select few have stumbled upon the mysteries of Aether before this age of discovery, and they had to marshal such power carefully to exploit it. Some explorers and adventurers now stumble upon Earth's best-kept mysteries and secrets, believe these to be the work of Aether, but more often it's from flux events. In the wider Tellurian spectrum of energies, which is psi and quantum if you're familiar with other Trinity Continuum games. So we have the Martian incident. Aether exists in this current time because of Martians. They are not the sole potential source of it, and it can be introduced again in the future. But this eruption of etheric power doesn't just follow in the wake of the Martians, it is the wake of the Martians. The Martians are not hostile natives of Mars that many people believe to be. They are merely a vanguard of the ascendancy, a forward team of periphery on the periphery of the greater multiversal empire. They sent this particular task force to scope out the worlds in the solar system that have potential for exploitation or conquest. However, the aliens who rule the ascendancy, who make up the ranks of the expeditory force, no longer rely on conventional forms of spaceflight or travel. They wield great quantum might, which like flux is one of the fundamental sources underpinning the universe, reality. They channel it largely through their devices and machinery to minimize their species' corruption. With this power, they tunnel directly through the flesh and bones of reality itself, carving a path across the galaxy and across the continuum. The Ascendancy's reality engines tear a path between worlds via a combination of brute quantum force and inspired science. The fruits of the few revered talents of their ruling species. So they have quantum and inspired scientists. Sorry, lost myself in a second. This is very interesting. A lot of stuff about the Martians. It reminds me of the Jahat a little bit in the anima, which I need to put up my anima video soon. I finished it over the weekend, but I keep getting distracted from uploading it. The nature of the future. I want to see if people remember that Aether exists. Okay, whether Aether-powered devices no longer alert, those who operate on the principles made possible via Aether use in their creation do still work. The spun Aether is still present in their little pieces of reality fixed into place, and so they continue to defy whatever laws of physics or sanity they violate. Aether devices most obviously resemble inspired or powered science, albeit operating according to principles that experts in either cannot piece together. In a rare few cases, etheric devices continue to see active use in the hands of criminals or rogue scientists, and they play into the flourishing of new scientific theories that begin during adventure and continue with Aberrant. By the era of Aeon, of course, they're more curiosity than opportunity. The widespread technological marvels that have developed off of the back of Novatech and bioapps will render most of what Aether can do redundant. Strange creatures from other worlds slither about in the corners of Earth, stranded when Aether gates to their homes ran out of power and shut down. A handful of Magogs cling on through into the Aberrant era, the last of their kind. Some step out of the shadows in the time of novas and pretend to be quantum wielding themselves. Perhaps the last few Martian survivors of the etheric sickness have hidden away in the human underworld as never seen bosses of a new way of criminal organizations. It's interesting. Interesting to see this. I did want to see if Melina is in. That's not her name. Is it Melina? Yeah, Melina. So Melina disappears into that gate. She disappears. They never find her. That's sad. Maybe there's an adventure somewhere in there of trying to recover her. In any case, thank you so much for watching this with watching me fumble through Trinity Continuum Aether. I had a lot of fun doing this. Aether is one of the books I've been waiting for in regards to stuff happening in the Trinity Continuum. We've got Aether was a big one. There was also Aegis, which is Greek mythology, which is probably going to come out sometime soon. And then I forget if Aether and Aegis Kickstarters or backer kits were close enough to each other, but hey, it's probably coming soon. And then of course we have the Kickstarters for Storypath Ultra and the Curseborn RPG. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna switch this over to pre-roll and we'll see who wants to hang out tonight. Peace. Awkward GM Corbin, you can find me on the Awkward GM Corbin at YouTube. Peace out.